In the summer of 1991, India did something it had never done before and has never done since. It loaded 67 tons of its own gold onto aircraft in secret and flew it out of the country. This was not a sale. It was a pawn. The gold went to vaults in London and Zurich, held as collateral because India was about to run out of money. Not short on cash, out of money. The country had enough foreign currency left to pay for barely 2 weeks of imports. After that, the oil stops. The factories stop. A nation of more than 800 million people was 2 weeks away from being unable to pay its bills to the rest of the world. So here is the strange part. The rescue that pulled India back from that edge is the reason you can pay for a cup of chai today by scanning a code. The crisis did not just save India, it quietly built the India you live in. To understand how the world's largest democracy nearly went broke, picture the economy it had built for itself. For decades after independence, India ran on a system people later nicknamed the License Raj. If you wanted to start a business, expand a factory, import a machine, even decide how many scooters to make in a year, you needed a permit from the government. The intention was protective, shield a young nation from being swallowed by foreign companies. But the result was an economy wrapped in paperwork, crawling forward year after year at a rate so sluggish that economists gave it a nickname, the Hindu rate of growth, around 3.5% a year. Then, in 1990, the storm hit. Iraq invaded Kuwait, and oil prices nearly doubled overnight. India imported most of its oil. At the same time, Indian workers in the Gulf stopped sending money home. And the Soviet Union, India's single biggest trading partner, was collapsing. 3 lifelines cut at once. The reserves began draining like a tub with the plug pulled. By June 1991, India's foreign reserves had fallen to barely $1 billion. To put that in scale, that is less than the cash some single large companies hold today for an entire country. The government had 2 choices: default on its debts and become a nation the world no longer trusts to lend to, or find dollars, fast, by any means necessary. So it did the unthinkable. It reached for the family gold. The Reserve Bank quietly airlifted 47 tons to the Bank of England and 20 tons to a bank in Switzerland to raise about $600 million. It was done in secrecy during an election season because the leaders knew exactly how it would land with ordinary Indians, a proud nation pawning its gold to strangers. When the news leaked, the outrage was instant. But here's what almost no one understood at the time. Pawning the gold was not the humiliation. It was the alarm clock. Into this mess walked 2 men nobody would have cast as revolutionaries. A new Prime Minister, P.V. Narasimha Rao, a quiet, scholarly politician who had nearly retired from public life. And the man he chose as Finance Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, a soft-spoken economist who had never won an election in his life. Just a year earlier, both had largely defended the old system. And yet, in a matter of weeks, they did what no Indian government had dared. They began dismantling the License Raj. They tore up the permit system. They opened India's doors to foreign investment. And in 2 sharp moves, 3 days apart, they devalued the rupee by nearly 20% to make Indian goods cheap enough for the world to want them. Then, on the 24th of July, 1991, Manmohan Singh stood in Parliament and read a budget that would quietly end one India and begin another. He closed it with a borrowed line from the French writer Victor Hugo. "No power on earth," he said, "can stop an idea whose time has come." It is the most quoted line in modern Indian economics, and it gently hides the real story. Because here is the Sphota, the click most retellings miss. India's great economic awakening was not, at its heart, a grand vision. It was a rescue. For years, leaders across different parties had known the old system was failing. Reform had been whispered about, even started in small ways in the 1980s. But no government found the political nerve to touch it, because change is painful and votes are not. What finally forced the decision was not brilliance. It was a near bankruptcy that left no other door open. Most historians who have studied 1991 land in the same place. The crisis did not interrupt the reform. The crisis was the only thing strong enough to make the reform happen at all. And the men who delivered it were not lifelong believers. They were pragmatists who, when the wall arrived, chose to climb it instead of crashing into it. That is not a smaller story. It is a truer one and a braver one. So what did those frantic weeks actually unleash? In 1991, the average Indian earned a few $100s a year inside a closed, slow economy most of the world simply ignored. 3 decades later, India sits among the 5 largest economies on Earth, growing faster than almost any other major nation. Its share of the world economy more than doubled. In the decades that followed, as growth compounded and welfare programs were later layered on top, hundreds of millions of Indians rose out of poverty, one of the largest such declines in human history. The reforms did not do all of this alone, and economists still argue over how much credit 1991 truly deserves. Critics of that era called it a surrender to foreign lenders. Supporters called it the rescue that saved the country. Both were arguing about the same medicine, but the door, undeniably, was pushed open in those weeks. And here's where it comes home to you. The same opening that let the world into India is what later let a tea seller in a small town accept money with a code on a phone. The space program that reached Mars on a shoestring. The startups, the expressways, the appetite to build big, all of it grew in soil that was turned over in 1991. Which brings us back to that secret flight. We remember it, when we remember it at all, as a moment of national shame. The summer India pawned its gold. But that is exactly backwards. The gold did not buy India a few weeks of survival. It bought a question that could no longer be dodged. What kind of country do we actually want to be? The answer to that question is the India you are living in right now. So the next time someone tells you India's rise was inevitable, remember the truth. It very nearly never happened. It took a country running out of money to finally start running toward its future. That is the Sphota of 1991. The crisis was not the end of the old India. It was the birth of the new one.